Hello and welcome to Capital Insight. I'm State Representative Kevin Mannix, and I'm your host for this program, which is designed to give all of us a little more insight into what government is all about, what the people who are involved in government are all about. Our guest today is a gentleman who is the current mayor of Salem and who has been involved in politics as well as professional practice as a dentist for many years in the Salem area. And welcome to Capital Insight, Roger Gertenrich.
Thank you for having me.
You were just elected mayor, well, gee, I shouldn't say just elected. It's been about a year now.
Well, it's in January.
Then you went into office in January. Well, you had kind of won the primary back in '94.
Yes, I did.
But before we talk about your mayoral position and all of that, I wanted to take us back and get to know a little bit more about you as a person. Can you tell us where you came from, a little bit about your education?
Yes, I can. I was born in the Chicago area, but I spent a portion of my life there during the Second World War. My father was in that. But I'm really a product of a very small town in Wisconsin. It's called Wild Rose, Wisconsin. It's got an unusual name, but it's about like Sisters. And I'm really a small town boy who didn't have much aspirations to excel into the world as we see it today or become a dentist. I went to college almost at the last minute by the encouragement of my aunt to Ripon College. Graduated from there and went from there into the military. I served as a medic in a MASH unit in Korea, and from there I went to Northwestern University in Chicago to the dental school. I got married, had an internship from there, and packed up my wife and two children, very small children, in a old beat-up car and pointed it west and came across the country, and as soon as I hit the Oregon border, there was a huge rainbow there, and I fell in love with the state from that minute on. I just absolutely love Oregon.
Now, when you first came to Oregon, then you had already completed dental school?
I had, yes.
And you already had a family by that time?
I had two here, and I was broke, and I had debts, and I was willing to wait on tables or do whatever I had to do.
Now, what year was this that you came
This
to
was
Oregon?
1963, and Oregon was selected because I had made a list of all 50 states and kept checking them off, and I liked the idea of being near California, but I didn't want to have anything to do with it, frankly. And there was a few nice states on there, and Wisconsin, my home state, was one of them. I had taken that state board, but I never regret my selection of Oregon. It's just been an absolute joy to be living out here. And Salem, I feel the same way about.
So you went into dental practice here in Salem?
Well, I started at Fairview because it provided an income. It provided a huge salary of $800 a month, and that was big money for me right then. And I then immediately got involved in dental research because I wanted to solve the problems of the world, and that world at that time was retarded children. And I was allocated some time, given some time by the superintendent to do that, published some papers on that need. And then I started private practice and made up my goal to accomplish 4 or 5 things in the dental area. And one was fluoridation, so I got heavily involved in the campaign back in '63, which was a heated campaign at that time for fluoridation of our city water. And then there was a number of other projects involving children, geriatric problems, nursing home problems, setting up an emergency call system in the hospital for night care of people and things of that nature.
So you got heavily involved from what I'll call the medical, dental,
Yes.
professional perspective in community affairs. And I would assume that you can look back at fluoridation now as a significant victory that's had a very, very significant impact on the future of our kids.
I feel that way, and I think it's made the prevention aspect of my profession has really paid big dividends for this, for the whole country, actually.
Now, as you were then developing, you moved into your own practice.
Yes.
And when did you start up with that?
Shortly thereafter, after a couple of years, and my entry into the political process or the city process came when the city came by and decided to take my dental building in an urban renewal process, and they listed it as a building that was substandard and had all these deficits and all these problems with it, and so I got involved in that urban renewal committee, and about a year later I got another letter from the city said that our building was to be a model for all other buildings to go in that area, that it was a high quality, high class building. So I saw that by getting involved you could have an impact.
Now, had your building changed, or had the attitude towards your building
My
changed?
attitude towards the building. A lovely building. It sits there right now across from the state safe building on the Pringle. Picture windows overlooking the stream where the salmon come down and spawn. It's a lovely building. Still is.
So the whole matter was, it was a matter of attitude on the part of the city towards older buildings, and what they considered standard or substandard had more to do with attitude about, gee, we ought to be tearing down and building new stuff.
That was it, and it was a fairly new building, and they also had an attitude on the river there, and their attitude was to, if I believe the phrase was, to improve on nature. They were going to cut all the trees down and put a concrete walkway all across on the edge of the river, and we convinced them that that wasn't such a prudent idea, and they've now protected those trees and put those wire baskets with rocks in, so I think everyone's happier on that one too.
Well, as you became more involved, you eventually ran for city council?
I did. There was I went from there to the Downtown Development Board, and then there became a vacancy on the council in my ward, and the person who was selected to be the representative had locked in 5 votes, and I challenged that, more or less at the urging of my family, thinking I'd lose but make a good point. And it turned out I won and wound up being on the council for 5 years. And that was a interesting process because I also got involved in the Elsinore Theater at that time. It was in my ward, and it was a recession, and there was thoughts about tearing it down, and I became very testy on that one.
Well, how do you feel now about where we're going with the Elsinore, with the restoration efforts and everything?
I think we're going along the Salem way, where it almost collapses, something extremely important and beautiful, and then we hover over it and acquire it, and then slowly fix it up with tender love and care over an extended period of time. So the acquisition of the capital and the long-range plans are just magnificent, and I look forward to seeing a beautiful complex, but I think it's going to take time.
Now, in terms of your tenure on city council, that was also a change and a transition time for this city in terms of moving from what folks might consider to be a small town by some standards to moving into a medium-sized city.
Yes.
And how did that transition work as far as you were concerned?
I think we're still suffering growth pains and growth management pains, and we now have for the first time the issue in front of us that are extremely important, the issues of water, the issues of crime, the issues of how we relate to each other, and how we have a sense of communities, and how we form together as a team. One of the first things I did when I was mayor-elect was to bring together people that were fighting each other for all the years on the Riverfront Park area, and to try to say to them, is there something we have of common interest here in this Riverfront Park where we can get together and work together on that? I think you'll see Team Riverfront do great things this fall in terms of assisting that park. So I think one of the first things I wanted to do was bring unity to the process. But I used the park for that, and when I
You're talking now about as you've moved towards your position as mayor.
That's right.
Let me take you back a little bit, though, because I do want to focus on the Riverfront project and where we are today. Talk a little bit about Salem as with its urban core area and some of the thoughts we've had about development and protection of the downtown area. Salem is being hailed as a model for cities that want to redevelop and protect the downtown core areas, not let them deteriorate. And has that dynamic worked for Salem because of the citizen activism combined with business involvement? How do you see that dynamic having worked?
Well, about 20 years ago and 15 years ago, we had core master plans. And the last core master plan that was put on the table had a list of things to do in the downtown, and many people thought they were ridiculous. The idea of sky bridging across our wide streets was one of them. 80% of the things that we had on that list of things to do was accomplished. And I've instituted in the city council process another core plan, and we're beginning it as of this month. It'll come in with its report in January. And around the table are 35 people that are just, as you mentioned, a coalition of neighborhood people and business people, and they had their first meeting a couple nights ago, and they were all just enthusiastically supportive, and they had tremendous ideas. And it was just fun to sit in that meeting to see them all honed in on the same issue of having a vital downtown. They are all interested in that.
As part of that vitality, for instance, the sky bridges are a good example, considering the Willamette Valley weather.
Yes.
And in terms of pulling people in for shopping, I guess we've gotten
Yes.
to the point where we don't like to be exposed to the elements at least all the time
That's
while
right.
shopping.
Right.
And it seems that that was a good way of providing connections for the downtown stores and shopping malls without having to eliminate the street traffic.
Correct.
And as opposed to, say, Eugene, which tried to create
Yes.
a mall, eliminate all the cars, and was it because they were, was Eugene's situation different because they were trying to fight against the natural inclination of Americans to drive their cars? And we seem to have understood that and assimilated that into our planning.
Yes, we're dovetailing it, although it's still an issue on the table. Parking, there are some that say let's get rid of all the parking structures. Others say let's add some more. That is still an issue on the table, as well as housing downtown, which I think is important. If we can accommodate some housing downtown and put people living downtown, you're going to have a much different complex in the downtown area. The sky bridges, I think I see a sky bridge going in and out of a transit mall when they have it, and I see it connecting with the sky bridge system, so people could come in buses, get in the transit mall, and never get wet as they go through the downtown. The new Frederick and Nelson building, the new owners that are going to begin construction in about a month and have a target date of May '96 to complete that Liberty Plaza, also want to skybridge from their facility into Penny's, and the city probably will dovetail their urban renewal funds to make that happen, or assist it, I would think. Same at the Riverfront Park. We'll have street access to it, but we'll also, I hope, someday have a skybridge over there.
Are we seeing more and more of a realization in the business community that they don't have to be fighting City Hall, that City Hall wants to be in partnership with the business community? Wouldn't the Frederick and Nelson building be a good example?
I think so. I think when I came aboard there was some apprehension that I was anti-business or anti-growth, and I think that has broken down. I was a businessman, and I have a strong business feel about it, but I also have a concern about the issues that in the city should involve the people and not a special interest group. And I think that if we look at it that way, sometimes it does both. I think the Riverfront Park will be extremely vital to all of the downtown businesses.
Well, as we talk about this, I'd like to pause and shift gears for a moment,
Yes.
because it occurs to me that Roger, the man, there's more to you than being a dentist and being involved as mayor and your political involvement, and you touched on your family. Do you have some special hobbies and avocations? You've mentioned the outdoors, and fly fishing comes to mind, but can you tell us a little bit about those interests?
Yes, well, I do have, since I was a little boy, I took a fishing pole out in this little small town, and I caught fish. In those days, I would bring them home as prizes, but one day I was out fishing for a real big fish that was there. I mean, to me, it was a real big fish, and I tried for months to catch that fish. And I finally caught it, and I walked into the river and got all wet, and I had it, and I took it home as a prize, and everyone praised me on it. But the next day when I went fishing, I looked down that stream, and that fish wasn't there, and all that excitement was gone. So I'm a catch and release fisherman now. I catch fish, and I say it's like I do with my dental patients. I bring them in, I welcome them, I hurt them in the mouth a little bit, and then I let them go. So that's kind of what I do there. I love fishing. I get up there and I just put my hands in the water, and I just see the deer and the animals around, and to me it's almost like going to church. So I have a real passion about the protection of the environment and the quality of living in the community as well, and the bike paths to me, and the fact that we are a river city, and the map will, if we refer to that later, I'll be able to demonstrate my feelings there. I also, I'm trying to play the piano, but I don't take lessons well, so I'm not good at taking lessons. So I take a lesson, and then I go for a year, and then I maybe take another one. But I love sitting down trying to produce music myself. So it's a personal interest, and then of course I read an awful lot.
Well, as we hear more from Roger Gertenrich, our mayor, who is also a reader and a fly fisherman, and someone who would like to play the piano and likes to play music, I've mentioned to our audience that you're with us on Capital Insight. I'm State Representative Kevin Mannix from Salem, and I'm your host for the program. Our guest today is the mayor of Salem, Roger Gertenrich, and we're learning a lot about him as a person and some issues that affect our community. In fact, one reason I wanted to sort of bring back some personal features is we so often see politics and government issues from a one-dimensional perspective. And in my conversations with you, I've been impressed with the fact that you're a multifaceted person, as we all are, and you have a lot of interests. And some of those interests, and this is where I'm coming around to the riverfront, really do have a positive impact on how you view government and what it can do. And in your conversations about the future of our riverfront, you've emphasized the water, and I think of the fly fisherman in you, and your sensitivity to nature and the environment. Now tell us, you've just become mayor as of January, when I guess time is passing, it's been a few months, but you're in a 2-year term, and one of the main focus points is to get us moving with this riverfront development. This is your opening, so tell us more about the riverfront.
Well, the first thing I did in the first week in January is got the city manager together and told him that I was going to, in essence, pull the cork on this project and get it moving. And I think it was a little bit threatening to all the staff, because it had been 20 years sitting there, and then several mayors had tried that. But they had tried it with a focus of putting a hotel on the park itself, which is something I favor. I favor the hotel and conference center, but not in the parkland. The people voted the money for a park, and I see the hotel coming in afterwards in surrounding area. So I'm very much in favor of a major hotel and a conference center, but the park belongs to the people. So that's the first thing I said. That's going to be a people park, and it's going to be fun and safe for children. And then I said to the process that they're going to have to get out of the way, because the cork is going to be pulled. And I indeed did that. I have a very tenacity and a determination to do what I feel is right and what I was elected to do. So in the process of pulling that, the staff rallied to the cause and found out they could do it. And we are now in a shifting of gears type of thing.
Well, can I interrupt there and ask, and it sounds like there's a shift of mentality too, from the can do as opposed to the can't do.
Absolutely. And my philosophy is to open the whole system, let everyone share. I've given committee assignments to that I normally would take to other people. I find as I have an idea, rather than trying to nurture it myself, I share it, and it almost angers me sometimes, because somebody will have a good idea and I'm wanting to go this way, and they say, here's what you should do, and they're right. And I love that. It's an exciting process. So in that process, we have got the park going. We have cleared the earth of the poisons that were in it on the 75% of the park. We had
when you say poisons, you mean the pollution that developed in the aquifer and underground over the many years of use by others?
Yes, it's 22 acres of downtown park where it was industrial, and there's no way you're going to get that much done without some headaches and some problems with DEQ and whatever else. But we have a compromise with DEQ that allows us to accomplish that need. But it has drawn down the pot of money, because we've been spending money on cleanup, and we have not been reimbursed yet for that, although Boise Cascade did give us some reimbursement. So there's two major things that I need to happen. One's already happened, and that is to set a high quality for the park, that we will not do things that are low quality or poor quality. That we've passed on. We've made that progress, and I can show you a example in the park. This is the park area here, this 22 acres here, and this pavilion here was originally thought to be just a barbecue pit kind of thing. Well, now it has here's a model of it here, and this is almost a signature for Salem, that when people focus in on the television camera, rather than just showing the Capitol, which is a state symbol, I hope that they'll show the pavilion here that's a city symbol, much like the Space Needle is, or the Twin Towers in Portland. This has a skylight, copper roof. It has garage doors or glass that slide up, opens the whole thing up for all sorts of events. It's going to be a wedding reception as far as that's concerned, but it's just going to be a wonderful, beautiful facility.
Now, where are we in terms of the stages of development for that? Is that something that has to await other park development?
Well, in my mind, by Thanksgiving time next year, I hope 75% of this park is all done. And that's an aggressive schedule, and we don't have the money to do it because of the drawdown of the money out of the pot from the cleanup. But there are ways to shift money in the process, and we have money coming in the future. So it's a little bit like you need a car now to get to work, and you have a check coming in December, but you can't get there. So there's a way to make it happen, because you know the money is going to come in. So that is my job. My job is to convince the council and other people that the benefit to this community in shifting that money and then replenishing it at a later time should happen now.
You're saying some tax dollars are coming in or some payments from other sources?
Well, we have an urban renewal fund that contributes money every year, so we get a check every year. We have $2 million in the pot already. We also have money in a tax plan with the county and the transit, and there's a line item in there for sidewalks that is no longer particularly needed at this time, and we can shift money here and shift money there. Now, if that happens, you will find that park action next summer. There'll be bulldozers bumping into each other down there, making all those things happen. We also have people in this community, and believe it or not, that are ready to commit $100,000 or $150,000, give us checks to put in fountains and so forth. So they're not inclined to do that if you tell them it might be a year or 2 or 3 or 4, but if you tell them it's next summer, they're inclined to give those checks, so we anticipate that.
Where your role then has been one, a facilitator as far as discussion goes,
yes,
but also an instigator as far as, hey, let's get this thing moving fast.
Right.
We've been dawdling about it and hemming and hawing. You pull the hotel out of the equation, which was the divisive issue.
Yes.
Where questions of whether the government should be funding a hotel, so that's a separate problem. Leave it alone. In effect, you're saying if we build the park,
right,
the developers will come to want to surround the park with other facilities that are consistent with the park, and a downtown hotel, convention center, whatever, would tie in very well with that, as I read what you're saying.
Absolutely. We have the horse and cart situation. We have the cart in front of the horse. Now we've got the horses, the park. The cart can hold a hotel and all sorts of other things in it.
Now, doesn't this tie in with what we were talking about before in terms of urban development and redevelopment, maintaining our urban core and making it vibrant, absolutely, making it attractive for people even to want to live in the urban area because they'll have this wonderful park right nearby?
Absolutely. And we have children that are producing little tiles to put in the sidewalk down there. 700 of them this fall. And I want those children not to have to wait until they're teenagers to get to see those things. So all that momentum has to be carried, because once momentum drops or the economy changes, it's extremely hard to pick it up.
And right now, although some people may not see it, we are actually in a very positive economic
absolutely
situation. The city's doing well. The unemployment is at a reasonably limited figure.
Yes, it is.
And it seems this would be the time to take the initiative.
Yes, and I think our program ultimately dovetails in some things that you are doing for the state in terms of crime and the crime prevention area. We realize that we have problems, and we have to lock people up and put them in jail. We realize there are prisoners that should work, and all those things that you have worked with. We also realize that there's a need for a strong crime prevention aspect. So Marion Square Park, for example, and the skateboard park is now active. And there are children, dozens of children there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
You bring what I'll call real people,
right,
people who aren't shady characters into the community and into, yes, the neighborhoods, and you infuse the neighborhood with those kinds of folks, and they're almost an antidote to those who are on the margin of crime. Now, there's, right, some maybe hardcore who will engage in crime, sure, regardless of where they are, yeah, but you've got folks who may slide into that. But if there's enough good citizens there, that antidote is there, and I would assume that would wash it out. The same goes with the riverfront. Mm-hmm. If you've got a beautiful park, I think of Tom McCall Park in Portland.
Yes, yes.
That's not seen as a crime area.
That's right.
In fact, it's seen as probably an antidote to some of the surrounding areas, yes, where they've had some crime problems.
Yes, it's very easy to take the downtown and move it to the riverfront and fill it with businesses, but it gives you a different kind of a city. The map that I have behind you here is another representation of my philosophy. If you were to ask people to define the downtown core area geographically, they would have given you a description right here, the Nordstrom area. And I tried to open their mind and say, no, we're a river city. If you were to send this map to your friends back in Kansas, you would have a different image of what our city is like. There's 900 acres here. 900 acres of bike paths, we have a sports complex, and we have that area over there. It's called West Salem, and it's part of us. So we now have Downtown Development Board has now been expanded to include the business area of West Salem, and we now have representatives from West Salem on the board for the first time they've ever been there. They've never been extended the hand of friendship as if they are part of us. But we also have the capacity to put a little bridge across here, and it's controversial right now, but you could have a bike trail that goes from here across the park I'm also talking to the railroad about these railroad tracks and getting this bridge here. I'd like to have them give it to the city for $1. And then I'd like to see it go out all the way out to Dallas Independence. I'd like to see us be able to connect with the major parks. And
Are you thinking of some sort of a small rail line, or just using the track itself as a bike path or pedestrian path?
well, it could be both. It could be bike and pedestrian, because I think we'd want to communicate that way, and you could have vendors on it in the summertime that sell ice cream and things of that nature, but you could also have a little railroad trolley. You could have a park and ride that would take people, they could park their car here, and they could take them over, or a bus, and take them over to the place of work. So it could function as a means of keeping cars out of the downtown as well.
So what you're talking about, there's a lot of what-ifs and why-nots
That's right.
involved here.
And I can't see why you can't do them.
And as you run through those, I assume you can challenge people then.
Yes.
For instance, the rail line. Yes, why couldn't we have a trolley running through there? It could be
Yes.
very attractive. If you go downtown to Portland, I was just there a day ago, and not only do they have the light rail fancy trains, but they have a little trolley in the downtown area.
I didn't know
Something
that.
like the San Francisco streetcars, although the method
Yeah.
of propulsion is different.
Yes.
And I noticed it was filled with business folks who were just trying to get from one part of
Yes.
downtown to another,
Yes.
as well as some tourists. I don't know where they got that car from, but it looked like something vintage 1920,
Yes.
and they run it on the same line.
Yes, I see that happening. At Christmas time, there could be a communication trolley that goes between the parking structures, so you could park your car in one and not have to keep driving around the downtown going all over. You could just keep getting on that every 5 minutes. It would be coming by.
Could we
But just
also
a host-
entice people to develop some more second-story apartments
Yes.
and condominiums, as we're trying to encourage with even some tax breaks, I understand?
Absolutely.
So that you have more folks who actually live in downtown Salem?
One of the things that hurts us the most in that area is the state. There are some state fire codes and things like that we have to look at that may have to give some special compensations to those second stories, because the hallways are a little bit narrower.
You know what I'd suggest then, as your friendly state legislator?
Yes.
I would welcome some suggestions on that, because it
Yes.
seems to me we ought to change the state code to recognize you have some special circumstances. And in fact, if you look at the building code, some of them are outrageous in the sense that they forget that people used to have smaller bedrooms and smaller bathrooms and
Yes.
did very well, and
Yes.
now we require larger sizes.
That's right.
Well, we only have a couple of minutes left, so I want to make sure we get some information out to our fellow citizens about how they can be involved. Are there some ways that a viewer who wants to get involved in this project can contribute, and do you have some suggestions on that?
Yes, we do. Team Riverfront will come forth with a program, and the chair of Team Riverfront is Dean Wallace. Dean actually was my opponent in the mayor race, and when I saw that energy and that organizational capacity, his skills, I couldn't help but want to have him involved. And he is involved, and I think you'll see a very vigorous effort here this fall. And people can get involved in all sorts of ways.
Should they call City Hall and say, I'd like to help, I want to
They
be
can
on
call the
Team
mayor's
Riverfront?
office, and I'll get them plugged in.
What's the number? Just tell us.
It's 588-6159.
And that's in the phone book, too. It's 588-6159.
Yes.
It's also in the phone book under City of Salem,
Yes.
Mayor's Office.
And I'll just simply connect them with Team Riverfront. The Downtown Core Master Plan, they can plug into that. That will produce a report in January, and that report, a copy will be sent to you and other legislators to look at the things that maybe the state can help us on as well.
Very well. Well, folks, you've heard it here, maybe not here first, but here in more detail than you might have heard before. Mayor Roger Gertenrich has definitely got an agenda moving here, and I hope you find it stimulating as I do, and I hope you'll consider getting involved. Thank you for joining us on Capital Insight, and again, I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for being with us, and I hope that our audience will get involved as heavily as you have in terms of spirit, so that we can move with the riverfront.
I think they'll find it a rewarding participation.
Thanks very much for being with us on Capital Insight.